standing as I go back for the weekend.
Good evening, colleagues. Please remain standing while I ask my chaplain, Reverend Julie Howard, to say prayers before we start the meeting.
I invite all who choose to join me in prayer. Blessed are you, Lord our God, maker of the universe and Father of all. Guide the members of this council as they come together this evening. May they seek ways to work together for that which is true and good. May they have the strength and compassion to work always for the benefit of those they are here to serve. Teach them to be generous in their outlook, courageous in the face of difficulty, and wise in their decision making. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. As you decided last time, the Council is asked to agree to the recording of this meeting, which will be done by Council and the BBC should the consent of the meeting be given. All those in favour of allowing the meeting to be recorded, please show. Are there any against? Are there any abstentions? That vote is carried. As usual, Wigan Council's public relations team are going to use Twitter to report live from this evening's council meeting. There is a dedicated reporting area which is situated at the rear of the council chamber near to the press seating. However, I would ask members to concentrate fully on the meeting as this is our most recent important policy setting meeting. Can I also ask you to turn mobile phones off or to silence during the meeting? Should the fire alarm sound, members of the public should leave the town hall by the exit in the public gallery and proceed down the stairs to the first floor. Turn left and leave the town hall by the Hewlett Street exit. The town hall keeper on duty will assist the public in leaving the building. As usual, we will be using the electronic voting system this evening, except for those items where the will of the meeting is clear. Would members please note that if you wish to speak on an item, you only need to press the console button once. If you press it again, you will take yourself out of the queuing system. If there is a point of order or personal explanation, just alert me. There is no need for any members to press the console buttons again, as this will be managed from the dais. The queuing system will then not be disrupted. We will move to the formal business of the meeting. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening we have apologies from Councillors Joy Birch, Councillor Robert Bleakley, Councillor Mike Crosby, Councillor Jim Ellis, Councillor Don Hodgkinson and Councillor Gary Wills. Are there any further apologies this evening?
Councillor John Hilton.
Councillor John Hilton. Any more apologies? Thank you.
Minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of July 2014. I invite the leader to move and the acceptance of the minutes.
I'd like to move those minutes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All those in favour of accepting the minutes, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? Announcements. Item 3A. May I say it's nice to see Councillor Anne Rampling back from following her recent illness, which has prevented her from attending meetings. Item B. I would like to congratulate congratulate Compassion in Action on being awarded the Queen's Award for voluntary service for the work that they do to help those people who are less fortunate and who may need a helping hand with food, clothing and furniture. The founder member and chief executive is Councillor Pam Gilligan, and so well done Pam to you and your team. This was a massive achievement and you should be very proud of the award. Item C. Since the last meeting, I am able to report on the following sporting success for Wigan. Michael Grundy achieved a bronze medal in the freestyle wrestling Olympic competition at the Commonwealth Games. Greg Warburton. Greg competes for Great Britain under-23's wheelchair basketball team, and his team have recently won gold at the European Championships. Greg also competes for Oldham Owls, who are the Premiership League winners. Adam Phillips has won 3 British titles competing in cycle speedway, has secured a professional contract with Liverpool Football Club and played for the first team and also captains the under-16 England football team. Greg and Adam both won awards at the Believe Sports Award last Friday evening. Charlie Bowling is currently part of the Great British Wrestling Squad and over the past 12 months has achieved 3 gold medals, 2 silver medals and 1 bronze medal. Jenny Meadows achieved bronze at the British National Championships for the 800 metres. On behalf of the Council, I should like to congratulate our sporting personalities on receipt of these prestigious awards. Item D. I would like to report that the Royal Horticultural Society judges from the North West in blue arrived in Wigan in July. This marks the borough's 8th entry into the prestigious competition. They were then taken on a trip across the borough, visiting showpiece gardens and open spaces. The judges will mark Wigan on the following 3 main criteria: the quality of the floral displays, the amount of community involvement in the borough, and environmental responsibility and cleanliness. Wigan Council will be awarded a Royal Horticultural Society medal in gold, silver gilt, silver or bronze in the large metropolitan borough category. We also have a significant number of It's Your Neighbourhood entries from all across the borough. In addition, the borough have 2 community groups participating in the National Royal Horticultural Society Britain in Bloom Awards. These are the Bridges Community Group, Urban Community category, and Shevington and District in Bloom Town category. The Britain in Bloom judges visited these community groups in August. Winners for both the national and the regional events will be announced in October, and so green fingers crossed, the official results will be announced at the council meeting in November. Item E. I should like to place on record my appreciation to the officers involved with the arrangements for the town twinning visit to Angers from 11th to 14th of September. In particular, may I thank those who assisted with translations during the visit. Angers is a beautiful city with many impressive historical buildings, and the friendship and hospitality of its people will remain with me for a long time. The twinning agreement between Wigan and Angers was signed in 1988. Wigan set up educational links between the colleges. The twinning has evolved over the years and now not only involves schools, but also sports clubs, music bands, cultural organisations, clubs and business. The library book exchange has been a complete success. Item 4, declarations of interest. A schedule of declarations of interest has been passed round the council chamber. Are there any late declarations? Blank forms for declaring late interests have also been circulated. Please ensure these are returned at the end of the meeting. Verbal updates from Cabinet portfolio holders. Item A.
Can I move this point of procedural motion that says we take item 6C at this point of the meeting? That's the standards ad hoc subcommittee, the outcome of 2 recent hearings, and the motion that relates to it before the presentation on this matter.
Thank you. Is this seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Item 16. Changes to committee places. Oh, sorry, I apologise. Standards ad hoc subcommittee. Outcome of 2 recent hearings. We have a report on page 21 of the agenda, and the council is requested to note the outcome of the 2 standards subcommittee hearings in relation to Councillor Gareth Harris and Councillor Robert Beaker. The report requests council to agree the recommendations as set out on page 21 and 22 of the agenda. In addition, a notice of motion has been submitted that I propose to be treated as an additional recommendation to the report as it relates to this item. The motion has been submitted by Councillor Terry Hallwell, and I would remind him that he does not need to read out his motion as it is set out on page 110 of the agenda. Councillor Hallwell, can you please move the recommendations in the report and your motion?
No, I move the motion.
I second the motion, Madam Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whilst the Conservative Group supports the motion, we would like to propose an amendment to it. I have spoken to the proposer of the motion earlier on. Basically, the amendment is to simply add a sentence to the end of the motion reading, furthermore, this council...
Could I ask, is this amendment seconded?
Councillor Bradbury has agreed to second.
Councillor Hallwell, will you accept this amendment?
Thank you. The amendment is to simply add an extra sentence at the end of the motion reading. Furthermore, this council will write to Eric Pickles requesting that legislation is brought forward to create a right of recall so that electors may hold to account elected members when they fall below the standards expected of them in office.
Sorry, Councillor Hallwell, do you accept this amendment?
I accept the Madam, can I now speak, please?
Yes.
The current media coverage of standards behaviour in Wigan has been incredibly high, to say the least, and much comment has been made, not least because those found to have breached the Members' Code of Conduct by a cross-party panel, like Councillor Leaflet and the leader of the Standards Independents, Councillor Furres, have openly and publicly refused to accept some or all of the sanctions imposed on them by the panel and their deliberations. And that is why you have two censure motions on the council summons before you tonight, and an additional motion related to the resignation of Councillor Bleakley. Indeed, an example of which illustrates the contempt for the Members' Code of Conduct can be found on page 38 of the council summons, where Councillor Bleakley, in retaliation to a set of sanctions associated to his misuse of his council's mobile phone and making Premier rate calls, including 52 separate...
I'm sorry, could you just pause a moment, please? On this point of order, what rule of the Constitution do you believe has been breached and posed?
Madam Mayor, it's unclear whether we're talking about the motion or the Standards Committee reports, which are two separate items. I just want clarity on that, please. Thank you.
We're talking about the recommendations of the motion. It's going through the recommendation and the motion at the same time because it is connected. Continue, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Indeed, an example which illustrates the contempt for the Members' Code of Conduct can be located on page 38 of the council summons, where Councillor Bleakley, in retaliation to a set of sanctions associated to his misuse of his council mobile phone and making premium rate calls, including 52 separate calls to the chat room service made after an earlier warning, and the sending of derogatory and sexist remarks against women, writes, "They can shove them where the monkey stuffs its nuts." Councillor Ferris was found to have breached the code, as reported by the panel, for relentless, vindictive and personal attacks against the Chief Executive and other staff. The subcommittee also viewed it as deplorable for any member, in particular the leader of a political group, whose role is to lead by example, to make gratuitously offensive remarks about others who are linked to the council and then claim to be doing so in a private capacity. If a council officer or any other employee for that matter would have undertaken such acts, they would have been found guilty and their employment terminated. Madam Mayor, this government and Derek Pickles abolished the Standards Board for England, which meant local authorities had to establish their own scheme. In essence, a local code of conduct, but they would no longer have the powers to suspend a councillor from office for serious or repeated breaches of the Members' Code of Conduct. There is still a standards regime for Wales, and it is now clear to me and the members of this council that a Standards Board for England should be re-established, so all English councils can deal effectively with difficult and repeated breaches of the Council Code of Conduct. Now, Council, you will also note the inclusion of additional motion in relation to Councillor Bleakley, and in the interest of clarity, I've used the word extreme. Now, it does not relate to that as defined in the Part 5, Section 63 to 67 of the Criminal Justice and Immigration Act 2008. However, having said that, many residents that we represent would view those sites visited as extreme. They are not mild and are unacceptable, as is the repeated misuse of his taxpayer-funded council equipment and resources. It is a step too far for many local residents. Councillor Bleakley has repeatedly refused to step down, and we believe this position has become untenable. But the residents of Tilsley will have to wait until May 2016 to express their dissatisfaction and vote him out of office. Furthermore, Councillor Bleakley believes he has the continued support of the electorate in his local area. If this be the case, then he would have no point in putting this to the test by resigning his position and calling a by-election. Let him put his beliefs to the test and allow the electorate to be the judge of that. Before I finish, it is worth noting that the number of standards complaints we currently deal with are not a fair representation of the councillors in Wigan in this council chamber today, that behave in a manner appropriate to their elected office, because approximately 95% of us in this chamber are not currently under investigation, neither have been sanctioned. It is in essence a mere handful of councillors that are bringing this council into disrepute. I therefore ask the council to support the motion and the sentences.
Thank you, Councillor Orwell. Please will you turn your microphone on? Do any other members wish to speak? Councillor Gareth Ferris.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak. I'm not quite sure of the procedural, because what seems to be happening now is we've been voting on a motion and also 2 reports on block, which would normally be taken as individual items. So it may be confusing for some councillors if they wanted to vote one way for a particular part of the 3 items. Now, if they vote one way, then they vote another way for all 3. And the council, as you said, is going to take all 3 together, which is unusual procedure. I wonder why that is.
Councillor Ferris, can I just explain? We will be taking one vote because Councillor Orwell has already told this chamber they are connected.
I would strongly, strenuously deny the motion against Councillor Bleakley is anyway related to me. And let me put this on record. Little do any of you know, but the legal team that I have appointed are looking at some libel comments that have been made. Now, if this council allows that motion to go through with my name connected to that, that will be libelous to me, and that will be challenged just like the libelous statement made on the radio. I am not connected in any way, shape or form, Madam Mayor, and I would ask you to take legal advice on that. Thank you.
I will take legal advice.
Yes, the report which is before you deals with both items, and there's also the motion which has been put as well, and it's been put to you to vote as one. And I'm quite happy to give legal advice to that as well.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I'm not going to speak about Councillor Blakely, but I'd like to speak a bit against Councillor Ferris. It is my opinion that what he said about the Chief Executive, she is a liar. And I've got proof of that. Proof. No, I'm not sorry. No. I've got 10 minutes to say what I have to say. And I've got the evidence in front of
I'm
me.
not accepting this kind of behaviour in this chamber.
It's not behaviour at all.
I have told you to stop. Can we please take a vote on whether Councillor Riley is heard again in this chamber? All those in favour of him not being heard? Thank you.
If you like to interview out the outside, I'll give you all the evidence.
Councillor Riley, will you please
I've
sit
got the
down?
evidence. Colluding with the
All
police
those
as
against?
well. I'll tell you what, I'll leave the chamber if you want.
Councillor Molyneux.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh, it's like X Factor when you follow one. It's very interesting to see what happens. Can I just speak really about Councillor Robert Bleakley, because that is what the motion is about in terms of his behaviour. Now, I've been privileged, and I'm privileged to sit on this council for over 30 years. And I think I can honestly say I've never seen anything in terms of behaviour from an elected member that we've seen recently from Councillor Bleakley. I think it's sad, and I don't think anyone in this chamber, regardless of a political affiliation, want to start discussing asking members to resign because of the behaviour. But I honestly feel in this particular case, we have no choice. Because at the end of the day, when the electorate chooses, they expect us to behave in a manner that's fitted to the position that we hold. And that is to represent the people both of the ward that we sit and also the people of this borough. On numerous occasions now, we've had to deal with cases where Councillor Bleakley has been involved and been sanctioned by the Standards Committee, all of which have proven to be a fact. He's bullied staff, it's a fact. He's changed emails that could have resulted in someone getting sacked, it's a fact. He's used his council equipment on IT to access pornographic sites, it's a fact. He's used his mobile phone to phone premium chat lines and sites, it's a fact. Now, at the end of the day, when somebody pleads guilty, in my opinion, they're guilty. And I think we've now got to the stage where we fully understand as a council that we can't dismiss Councillor Bleakley. The Chief Executive can't dismiss Councillor Bleakley. Eric Pittles can't dismiss Councillor Bleakley. But there are times in everybody's life when you've done something wrong, admit it, get on with your life, and if you need help, ask for that professional help, because in my opinion, Robert needs professional help when you start to look at these cases. We have offered him that as a council, he's rejected that, and I think the time has now come for Robert to resign. And let the people of Tilsley decide whether they agree in having a councillor who has committed all these offences. And I urge Robert to resign. And I'm hoping that 100% of this council will support that. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor George Ferris.
Thank you, Madam for allowing me to speak. Well, I've been a councillor since 2004. And I'm not taking sides, I know the crack. But we always seem, for the last 10 years, let's get shut of the opposition members. It doesn't matter who they are. I'm not saying what they've done, I'm not saying they're right, or whatever, just speaking generally, get shut of the opposition members. And yet, and I'm not mentioning names, so the people who, if they're in this room, I'm not having a pop at you. I'm having a pop at the system. There were two councillors claiming petrol money for cars when they hadn't got cars. Yeah. There was a recent one which I don't know a lot about, which was in the paper, something up at Winstonley. I did mention it to the Chief Exec. Something at Winstonley. All three, what happened to them? Nothing. Not a thing. Not a thing. And then there was one councillor sent my daughter-in-law a letter just before Christmas stating that that girl didn't get her injuries by three Labour councillors knocking on the floor. It was your husband dragging her down the passageway trying to rape her. That was a Labour councillor. And I'm not... What happened to him? Nothing. I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything what you're doing now. But what happened to these four? Not a thing. Now, when are we going to have some fair play over here? When are we going to have some balance? I always get up with everybody. I always respect everybody. So why don't we get our fair crack? Four Labour councils, 3 Labour councils,
Councillor Ferris, please
it's
can we
time,
stick to the
it's
facts
time, Madam
here,
Mayor,
not
we have some fair play. Once again, we haven't to speak up with. Thank you.
Councillor Gareth Ferris, I'm sorry, you've already spoken, you're not allowed to speak again.
Well, no. I want to the point. I was asking for clarity.
No, you've already spoken on this item.
Well,
I'm sorry, but you can't speak again.
Legal opinion, because I was only asking first part of clarity, and then you was allowed to speak.
I'm just getting some legal advice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My advice is that Rule 11.3 of the Council's Procedure Rules states that any member may speak on a motion or a recommendation once and for up to 5 minutes. Councillor Ferris has spoken on this item and therefore he can't speak again unless he's going to be raising a procedural motion or amendment.
I'm going to move the amendment.
You can't do it now at this point, I'm sorry. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, as part of the refurbishments of the Town Hall, the Cabinet and myself have been moved across to the Civic Centre, and we've had to change offices. Well, for them it wasn't too bad, but I've had that same office for over 20 years. So you can imagine there's a lot of stuff to go through. And of course, inevitably, I went through my stuff. I found a file. A file of all those councillors who behaved badly throughout the years. Of course, it's the usual suspects, mainly. But I think of all, I kind of had a quick look through most of the stuff. And the person who stood out more than anyone else was Councillor Robert Bleakley. I had a complaint about it when he'd only been at council 5 minutes because he'd used somebody without permission in his election leaflet. So they weren't too pleased about that, but it continued on. And the complaints have been with increasing seriousness. He's been suspended from the council by the old standards board, and we've had the events which this report is relating to council, which the motion is there. So I'm pleased, Madam Mayor, that this time the motion is attracting support across the council and not just from the Labour Group. I've only got one question though to some of my colleagues. Where were you 18 months ago when, as Deputy Leader said, Councillor Bleakley was forging emails to try and get someone sacked and using the almost identical pornographic sites on his laptop? That wasn't regarded as being anything that needed any serious consideration. But perhaps what distinguishes this complaint from the others is, in addition to all the pornography, by any standards of mine, it certainly is extreme. In addition to that, there's the texts revealing the attitude of Councillor Bleakley to many things, but particularly about the women. Just remind you of the words, no wonder women are just cooking and washing materials. How can you hold such a view in the 20th century? Despite all this knowledge about what Councillor Bleakley did, Councillor Gareth Ferris invited him into his group. And despite what you might read in today's Observer, to get the extra member of the Priest Court entitled him to be paid a group leader's allowance. And he was paid at £290.90 per month since June. Since June.
Can we just have one meeting at a time?
But in the paper, he's denied it, saying you don't got paid anything. So, I don't know, I think we can know how to believe what he tells us. But in claiming his allowance as a group leader of Councillor Bleakley, he made no attempt to discipline him when all this was coming out. He made no attempt. In fact, as Councillor Hannah Walsh pointed out, he's been defending him many days after this came out. Many days after this came out, he defended Councillor.
Excuse me, Leader, what is your point of order?
Point of order, and I would like clarity from the leader where I supported.
No, I need to know what rule of the Constitution are you saying this point of order, please?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to answer that point anyway, because of course Councillor Halliwell covered exactly the same point in his introductory speech. He said in the text how he did support, thought he would get support for what he did. What concerns me as leader of this council is this issue has damaged us, it's damaged the borough, it's damaged the town of Tillsville in particular. When we are identified as having the worst council, and with all respect to the BBC, so often they find their way to Wigan Council meetings when we do good things, but they come tonight. So I think it is damaging what's going on, we ought to be here tonight to talk about lots of good things that are going on in this borough, and we're mired into this. I did kind of vaguely that maybe this was such an extreme case that we might actually start to move on as a council. But in fact, it's been demonstrated tonight that we're not going to. But don't worry, we're not giving up. We're going to keep on going until we get it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of points. I mean, obviously by now we all know exactly what Councillor Bleakley's done, and as has been said by the Deputy Leader, these are facts, these are things he's admitted, it's not in question. Just one brief correction though, which is to the Leader. Last time Councillor Bleakley was censured, I did vote in favour of his censure. So that's not... Yeah. So basically, why have I asked for this amendment? Well, it's a very simple reason. It came up in the papers, came up in Councillor Bleakley's statements to the press. It's somehow that, despite all of this, the people of Tildesley still support him. Well, I was there on the cross-party petition signing, and I certainly didn't see that from people I was talking to in Tildesley. He's attempting to use the people of Tildesley as a shield to carry on in office for another almost 2 years. And I think it's important that Councillor Bleakley knows that the people of Tildesley are not his shield. They are not his shield. Effectively, we should have a power of recall. We should have the ability, if someone has been absolutely disgraceful in office, to basically take them and put them before the electorate, so the electorate can say whether they want them to be the councillor anymore. I would slightly disagree with the proposed motion, Councillor Halliwell, because I don't think the Standards Board was very good. I remember all too well that when we had the Standards Board, this council was named as one of the most appalling councils for spurious complaints. Everyone was complaining about everybody else, and I'm glad it's abolished. But he is right that we do need a mechanism in place to deal with problems like this. And I think you're absolutely right. And I do think, I agree, this motion should be unanimously supported, because isn't it appalling that the only time we can get television cameras here to talk about us is when there's some appalling scandal? And I will add one final thing. I do think that Councillor Bleakley probably isn't a well man, and he should resign, and he should go and get help. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
First point is the complaint was, I'm talking about Councillor Gallagher now, not Councillor Bleakley, because they are two separate issues, not one. Therefore, any member of the staff being asked to investigate will be put under undue pressure because he was head paid services who made the complaint, and if they found the complaint wrong, then it may have a bearing on them. We asked for an external investigation, but was told to the cost. The answer was no, but the last time the Chief Exec complained about Councillor Gareth Fairhurst, he did have an outside investigation and was found not guilty. We hear the response, but didn't go down too well, hence going forward on a non-external investigation. In that case, that wasn't about Councillor Gareth Fairhurst wasting taxpayers' money, that was about the complaint, and maybe she would like to reimburse the Wigan Council taxpayers £7,000 out of her salary. So the first point was the investigation, legal and fair, no. Secondly, when under examination the investigating officer said that at the point, including the beginning, when she was asked to investigate the complaint, was he innocent in her eyes, and therefore he was found guilty straight away. Talk about a fair, impartial, unbiased investigation. And yes, we do have it on tape, and you can make that up in your investigation if you like, but she did admit it on tape. The whole point of the investigation, under the Oxford Dictionary definition, is to research and look into subject matter. So the complaint was that Councillor Gareth Fairhurst said to the Chief Exec, told lies, and and she was politically biased. Surely the investigation would need to research that matter, but the investigator didn't interview one person. So again, was it fair? No. Thirdly, we didn't realise this, but our legal team have picked up on this, and it is in a failing of the ad hoc committee. We know what the complaint was saying. She told lies, but the investigation should have determined and asked the complainant, so what, is your complaint that he's telling an untruth, or you don't like the fact that he has said what you are, because you still don't know why the complainant complained? Finally, the notice said he had to do a public apology by a certain day. Councillor Gary Furness recorded the meeting, and it was never mentioned, on one of the ad hoc committee members also confirmed this to us, that there was a date added in there. As you said, it has been recorded, and there was no date on there that he had to do a public apology. With all this, Madam Mayor, we call that the Standards Committee needs to decide that either the investigation needs to be carried out to the English law, and the accused has to be treated fairly, and the true facts need to be determined, or if they don't want to do that, they must decide that the public notice investigation wasn't fair or legal, therefore it is withdrawn. We formally gave the Council 14 days to do this at this time. We will then lodge a judicial review at the High Court, and we will get this heard there, and let's see what the court thinks of the outcome. Also, a point to Councillor Lord Smith. What did you do with Councillor Emma McGurran and Councillor Joe Shaw? Did you hand in your leader's money? I don't think you actually did you? So, why is it only one rule for one party and not for the others? Why not do an equal share of everything? Can you do to each member of the council?
Your time's almost running out. Can you please just keep to this?
I am doing. It was two separate things that I wanted to speak about. One of them was Councillor Gow's Fairness complaint, and one of them was Councillor Bleakley's. You would put Councillor Gow's complaint in with Councillor Bleakley's, which isn't right. He has nowhere on anywhere looked at porn, so he should not be put in the same category.
Councillor Gareth Furness, can you tell me please this amendment to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to put an amendment to the motion. In terms of trying to defend the indefensible, we can't defend it, so therefore, no anybody tries it. However, this council has been accused...
Councillor Furness, can you just put the amendment?
Yeah, okay. The amendment is simple, to put all councillors in the same bracket, and they read like this. This council calls for any and all councillors that have found to have access porn websites on any of the council equipment to be asked to resign their position and their seat immediately. That way refers to all. Thank you.
Is that seconded? Councillor Oliver, will you accept this amendment?
No, Madam, can I speak?
Can we put this to the vote, please? All those in
Madam, may I speak on the amendment?
Sorry, I'm just taking some advice on this. Councillor Gareth Furness, you can speak on this amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak on this motion, or amendment to the motion. The idea and the logic behind this motion is not political, and I hope there's no political politics brought into it. What we're saying here in the original motion, we were targeting one councillor, right there on whichever side the argument may be on, and that's fine. However, what happens, so we've had numerous, 5 separate councillors that have had pause on their council equipment, but this is the first time that anybody has been asked to resign. What I think we council should do is to send a clear message to all councillors, present and the future, that we won't tolerate this kind of behaviour. And if you get found out, we will ask you, just like we are doing with Councillor Tinkley, to resign your seat. That way, we don't have to put another motion with another councillor through. We're making a new ruling. We're setting new standards. We're setting them up firm. We're setting them up for all. And this is a non-political motion, and if anybody opposes it, I would ask why. Why would you not want all councillors put in the same category and have to resign? Let's send a clear message to us all, and let's try and put some confidence out there in the street to say it doesn't matter whether anybody's in our group or our party or not. We will ask them to resign if this is the kind of behaviour that they're doing. Now let's see if the Labour group support the amendment. Thank you. I will ask to sum up at the end.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's somewhat interesting that Councillor Burris wants to send a clear message and gives us an amendment to it. So I just thought I'd give you the timeline of events. So on the 1st of June 2014, Wigan Independent Group was formed, consisting of Burris family and Councillor Bleaker. On the same day, Gareth Furth becomes the leader of that group, now we call the Wigan Independent Group. On the 5th of September, the Standards Subcommittee, looking into Councillor Bleaker's case, was heard and notice given, which included breaches of the sanctions imposed. On the 17th of September, 12 days later, Councillor Furth informs Council that he is reverting back to the Standish Independent grouping. So, for clarity, the Independent group has gone back to the Standish Independent group. Now, he talks about being a good leader. So at the time, when he tweeted at 10:51 a.m. on the 14th of September, so this is after the sanctions, after the report, and I quote from his own tweet, "I can't believe it. Given what Councillor Bleaker has done, his popularity seems to have gone up. No wonder Labour wants him to resign." Now, does that sound like a leader to you? Considering all the evidence that have been out in the open. Full 12 days before he decided to do it. But there is no evidence here of him acting as a leader, and none on the 17th of September 2014, when he reverted back to a Standish Independent grouping. Instead of removing Councillor Bleaker and acting as a leader from the Wigan Independent grouping, what did he do? He kicked himself out of his own newly formed group. Now, what type of leader is he, and what type of leader would do that? I'll let you make your own mind up. You can decide. His motion is therefore a headline-grabbing exercise designed to hide his inability to act as a responsible leader. In addition to this, breaches of the code need to be investigated. I understand.
This is nothing to do with the motion.
It is Councillor Burris. Please continue, Councillor Arnold.
The motion is nothing other than a headline-grabbing exercise designed to deflect from his own shortcomings. He has had plenty of time to ask Councillor Bleaker to resign, and he's had plenty of time to write that in the press, but he hadn't. He's chosen that tonight. But the timeline is there, and the evidence is there. You only have to ask for it. And just on a procedural issue, the issues around breaches of the code and standards, when there's a potential breach of the code, it has to be investigated. And I'm afraid Councillor Gareth Furth's amendment doesn't hit the spot. It may well be that pornography or access to sites could be found on a council computer, but that person might not well have put in work. And that was the case. With the two examples he gave earlier. The person who had it didn't put them on there, didn't access it. Now, by not accepting this motion, it does not stop anybody in any way, shape or form in the future to move a motion for somebody to resign. So I repeat, there is no need for this. It's a headline grabbing exercise. And each case has to be judged on its merits. And we can't accept the motion because, quite frankly, it doesn't fit the bill. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, we had a speech a few months ago from Councillor Debbie Firth, when she alleged that in the case of Councillor Gareth Firth, the process has been right. Well, I'm comfortable that the Standards Committee and the officers advise them right, but it's very important, isn't it, that we want, when people are accused, councillors are accused of doing things, they need to have a proper process, the due process to take place. And then, if they are found guilty, the appropriate sanction is dealt with. So as Councillor Halliwell said, this is simply an amendment to try and destroy the argument, trying to confuse everyone. If any member of this council, member of migrant workers, is found to have breached the IT rules, then it's proper that that should be gone through by the Standards Committee. And if the breach is found, it's then up to us as a council to make a judgment, as we are in this particular case. Just remind you of the extreme nature of the abuse of the internet system and the mobile phone in this case. But nevertheless, I agree, everyone should know if there is a serious breach, then it will be properly investigated, whichever group they are. Can I just use the opportunity, Madam Mayor, to reply to the point Councillor Ferris' claim about what I get paid as a leader? I can assure you, first of all, I'm not paid by numbers, I'm not paid by results. If I was, perhaps should put this as an amendment, I get paid a lot more money than I am now, because of my colleagues' revenue, but it's not that remuneration. Whenever I found a member of my group is not paying me properly, then I've acted accordingly and reported them if necessary to standards and so on. So I have no problem with that, but I will do that because we're all elected by the people of this borough. We have to keep standards that people expect, and if people fall behind, then I'll try and see that the answer for that.
Thank you. Councillor Briley, I'm sorry, but this chamber voted that you didn't speak again this evening. Councillor George Ferris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Just once again, very briefly, trying to talk some common sense. 12 days, as Councillor always says, didn't throw away straight away. 12 days, in fact, I was on holiday, he couldn't make a move until there was all three of us there. But when I came back at the beginning of the following week, the first thing the guy said, what do you think? I said, out. He said, right. We filled the form in, I delivered the form to Christy and Charlotte that he was out. We did not support him, and when I found out about the action, like I said, the first thing I said to Gareth, out. We're not people like that with us. So I think before we start talking, some of us should start getting the facts right and finding out what's going on instead of playing party politics because there's cameras here. It's ridiculous. And like I said, it's about time to start. acting as councillors, 75 councillors. And you can laugh, that just shows your ignorance. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gareth Burris, you can sum up the amendment now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to sum up. Well, I always say, Labour can never surprise me in this council chamber. But they just surprised me. I didn't think there was any contention with banning porn on council equipment, which my amendment said, quite clearly, categorically. But yet, Labour seem to be going against the motion. Why do they want to allow porn on council equipment? That is a question that the public will ask.
Councillor Ferris, can I just ask you, did you hear what our leader responded to? Because I did, and he did not say that.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry. Madam Mayor, this motion amendment is simply just to put out a message to
Madam Mayor,
beginning with.
Can I ask you, Councillor Alwell, which point of order?
all porn is banned on council computers now.
Well, if that's the case, if Councillor Halliwell wants to say that quickly, because I've made a statement, why don't we hear...
Can you please finish your summing up, Councillor Ferris?
That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Really what I'm trying to do. But yet, if that's the case, this amendment should go through quite simply, uncontentionally, quite simply. But yet, Labour don't want it. They don't act in the cases of the 4 cases of porn, and including Councillor Joe Shaw and child porn. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor Prescott, you can't speak because he's summed up his amendment. All those in favour of accepting Councillor Gareth Ferris' amendment, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? That vote is carried. We're back to the original motion. Do you want to sum up now, Councillor Alwell?
I thought it was Councillor Grundy.
You need to sum up because it's a substantive motion.
Madam many points have been raised tonight about what we expect as standards on council. And we've touched on some of the breaches, and we've touched on some of the sanctions, we've touched on the behaviour, some of which we've seen here tonight. We've also seen examples of headline grabbing, chaff thrown in to deflect from Councillor Ferris and his lack of leadership in relationship to Councillor Bleakley. And I could read the timelines out again for you if you wish. And I repeat, I can't believe it, given what Councillor Bleakley has done, his popularity seems to have gone up. No wonder. Does that sound like a leader to you? I also would like to point out that when we are elected, we agree to a set of protocols and principles, and we have signed up to IT policies. And it quite clearly states that you're not supposed to access that sort of material. So by default, porn is banned on your council computer, on your council facilities, on your council resources. So Madam Mayor, I hope Councillor Bleakley, for his own good and his own health, stands down, calls a by-election, and allows the people of Tilsley to have their say, to have their judgment. Because otherwise they'll have to wait till 2016. And I'd like to thank those opposition parties who supported this tonight and your contributions. I'd also like to thank Councillor Gary Wilkes, who unfortunately isn't here tonight, because again, he called for his resignation. So, Madam I think quite enough has been said tonight. We, as a council, would hope that we behave in a manner appropriate to our elected office and that we carry it out as correctly as we possibly can. When people make a mistake, quite often it's enough to say all you have to do is apologise. Say I'm sorry. But there are some members in this council where that seems almost impossible. And isn't that a shame when apologies to the do? So, Madam, there are two stations in front of you. One is Councillor Gareth Spurs, against Donna Hall, and the other censure is Councillor Bleakley and the issues related to his mobile phone. Finally, there is the motion Councillor Bleakley to step down and allow people of Kilsley to have their say. So, with no further ado, can I ask the Council to support two censures in the motion, and could I also call for a name vote? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. We're using the electronic voting system. All those in favour of agreeing with the recommendation, including Councillor Oliver's motion and Councillor Grundy's amendment, please vote. Thank you. Thank you. That is carried. Councillor Brealey, are you not voting? Are you abstaining?
No, that should be carried because he said I can't speak, so
You can vote on this. Right, we'll continue this meeting now. Item 6A. Presentation by the Leader of the Council on the Ipsos Mori Household Survey Annual Report. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is a slide that hopefully will arrive in a couple of moments. And I can start with those in rather do an introduction, then ask for the slide. Madam Mayor, in view of the huge changes to council services and the continuing pressure on our budgets, we decided to check residents' views about the council and about what we did. It was back in 2008 we did the last survey, and we wanted to see how things had changed at that point. We chose Mori as the specialist in this case to do a lot of this stuff, and they were very professional. They did a survey, and it would give us robust and independent advice. They carried out the survey as a random postal sample, 4,500 addresses, which they've ended up with 1,200 odd responses. Although this sounds low, it's actually significantly higher than we achieved last time, and significantly higher in other councils. So the results, Madam Mayor, are on the screen now. And what it shows, very simply, very straightforwardly, is that we outperformed this time than we did in 2008. So on all measures, the council was given greater satisfaction, better service than 2008. Some ways remarkable. But also, compared with a couple of council neighbours who they had data for. We don't know who they are, but they give us a good comparative figure. You can see, again, Madam Mayor, from that, again, we're City-Hall neighbours sometimes by quite a big margin. The first figure is that 62% of people in the borough are satisfied with the way we do things. It was 30% last time. That's an enormous change, great improvement, and it shows lots of things. One of the things it's based on is that 75% of people in the borough like the place they live, which is again a very high percentage and shows a great deal of satisfaction. They trying to find underneath how we've achieved this. Obviously, one of the things is better communication. We think we are doing a lot better about that than we did know. In the last time, we 58% think we communicate well, 32% in 2008, and in the other council it was 48 and 30. So again, significantly higher than those. It may disappoint some people to learn how popular borough life is. 86% of the residents said they have a look at borough life, and half of them read it from cover to cover. More than 11. So it is a popular publication. People understand what it does. Last March, the budget, we launched the Wigan deal. And we were pleased, even at this relatively early time, recognition of the deal, what it means, was getting through to the public. So, pleased about that. There was a bit more work to do, but nevertheless it was a good start. As you might imagine, Madam Mayor, not every part of the borough is equally satisfied with the council, but one area stands out as being the most satisfying that we have, and that's Madam Mayor, is Wigan North, Shevington, Aspel, and of course Standish. Again, that may shock some of the Standish independent. So, although we're happy with the figures that we've got, we're not going to be complacent. We're going to use these figures to try and understand more about people, what with them, and so on. But as I say, if you look at those lines of greens, compare with how we used to be and our comparative horizon, I think we've done pretty well in view of the level of cuts this borough's had to take.
Thank you, Leader. Do any other members wish to speak? Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to respond to the findings of this survey, and I'd like to commend the leader. Obviously, it's good to know that the borough is headed in the right direction. However, sometimes we might be reading too much into it. I am satisfied with my local area as a place to live. That doesn't necessarily mean I strongly support Labour running the council. I dare say many people in Woking feel exactly the same way. We shouldn't necessarily take it as an endorsement of the council. Nonetheless, as I said, things are heading in the right direction. I don't think this is unique. I think there have been other surveys done, indeed across the country, where even as the amount of resources going in across the country, there's been an improvement in how people perceive the local services. In many cases, the reduction in funding has forced local authorities to think creatively about how to deliver local services, and they have delivered better local services as a result. And I think this is true of this borough. I think some of the reforms we've been seeing around things like Wigan Lake are an improvement. With reductions in the management team, that's an improvement. And I think if you ask ordinary people about that, they agree. It's was just a shame, like I say, that we had to wait for a time of austerity to start making these improvements. I do think, however, that there are some worrying signs in there. In terms of people agreeing that the council is value for money, still almost 60% of our residents do not feel that this council is value for money. And of course that's improvement on the 30% that
Excuse
we
me,
had
can some
before.
of the members be a little bit quiet, please, because we're picking the sound up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That is an improvement on the 30% we had before, but we can do so much better. And of course, in terms of talking about our neighbours, we're not talking about our geographical neighbours. We're not talking about that we're outperforming Trafford. We're talking about our statistical neighbours. In other words, we're talking about other local authorities across the country that have the same kind of demographic profile as Wigan. And I think you know, it's good that we're outperforming a good number of our statistical neighbours, but many of those boroughs have really serious problems as well. I think when we start outperforming local authorities like Trafford, it will be a really great council. Nevertheless, it's important. Come on now, you can dream, can't you? No, seriously, it is good that the direction of travel is in the right direction. And I do think, I do think that some of the decisions that have been made by the group have been hard, but actually they're starting to pay off. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do any other members wish to contribute? Leader, would you like to sum up?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure what that was, whether it was a contribution, praise or criticism. But we'll take it anyway from Councillor Grundy. I mean, the essence is we're doing a lot better than we were, so I think that's the main thing. You can't ask an organisation to do that. We do, there are areas that we need to improve on. It's not that we have to. I think actually, if you look at comparison of other councils, we do get very good value for money. But the point is that people don't recognise that. And we need to try and do better to get through to people on that. And I'm not sure about why Trafford is such a wonderful thing. Perhaps it's because they have that Old Trafford football and cricket ground.
Thank you. Councillor Edwardson, I'm very sorry. It's just that we couldn't see your name on here because we still have the... So you don't wish to speak now? I'm going to take a vote now, and it's a hand vote. All those in favour of accepting the report? Those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Item 6B. Changes to committee places. As a consequence of Councillor Bleakley no longer being a member of the Standish Independent Group, there are now 2 members who are not in a group, and they have gained 1 additional seat on each of the licensing and regulation committees. The change does not affect the seats allocated to the Labour Group, the Wigan Independent Network or the Conservative Group. The Council is requested to agree the revised allocation of seats on committees. Proposed changes. A request has been received that Councillor Shirley Dewars be replaced by Councillor John Hilton on the Licensing and Regulation Committee. There is no vacancy for the non-group councillors on the Licensing and Regulation Committee. This appointment must be the same person. Mandatory training must be undertaken before a member can sit on the Licensing and Regulation Committee. Councillor Gareth Burris has indicated that he would take the place of Councillor Robert Bleakley on the Health and Social Care Scrutiny Committee, who is no longer a member of the group. The Council is now requested to consider these changes. Are the proposals moved and seconded? Thank you. Do any other members wish to contribute? vote. All those in favour, and it's a show of hands again. Please vote. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that's carried. Amendments to the Constitution. We have a report on page 55 of the agenda, which was considered by the Cabinet on the 21st of August. The Council is requested to agree the recommendations of Cabinet to amend the Council's Constitution as detailed on page 57 to 59. Is that moved and seconded?
Second, Madam Clerk.
Leader, do you wish to speak on the item? Do any other members wish to contribute? All those in favour of accepting the recommendations of Cabinet to agree to amend the Council's Constitution as detailed on page 57 to 59 of the report, please show, and it's a vote of hands again. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That vote is carried. Alderman Nominations Committee have recommended that the Council agree to the following. 1. That based on the criteria and additional information received by the Council, former Councillor John O'Neill be appointed as an honorary alderman. 2. To agree to hold a special meeting of the Council to be held at 6:30 p.m. on the 12th of November for the purpose of formally conferring the title of Honorary Alderman on the former member. And 3. To approve the necessary arrangements for the event. If the Council is minded to accept these, then the November 2014 meeting date will be offered to Mr John O'Neill. Are these recommendations and the suspension of Rule 1.3 to allow the Council meeting to follow the special meeting on the same night? Is that moved? Second. Leader, do you wish to speak? Do any other members wish to contribute? All those in favour of accepting the recommendations of this? Oh, sorry, Councillor George Ferris.
Thank you, Madam I'm fully behind John. I first met John a few years ago. It was all right on Sunday morning and John started coming with us. I was on the planning committee when he was chairman, and I always found John very polite, very understanding, and very helpful if you hadn't got any issue, if you had any issues. In fact, I was on the phone to him last week. I got a little problem, and I phoned him up, and he did help me. So I think it's deserved, this one. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favour of accepting the recommendations of the Honorary Alderman Nominations Committee and the suspension of the rule, please show of hands again. All those against? Any abstentions? That vote is carried. Item 6F, Timetable of Meetings 2015-16. A timetable of meetings has been circulated for 2015 and 16. I invite the leader to move the schedule of dates and times of meetings for 2015-16 as set out on page 73 of the main agenda.
Like to move those, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Leader, do you wish to speak? Do any other members wish to speak? All those in favour of accepting the dates and times of the meetings for 2015-16? All those against? Are there any abstentions? That vote is carried. Thank you. Item 6G, appointment of local authority representative governors. The Council is requested to approve the nominations for governor vacancies set out on page 78 of the report and the reappointments set out on page 80. Is this recommendation moved and seconded?
Moved, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Do any members wish to contribute? All those in favour of accepting the recommendation for governor appointments? All those against? Are there any abstentions? That vote is carried. Item 6H, appointment of representatives on outside bodies. The Council is requested to consider the nominations for outside bodies set out on page 2 and 3 of the Council agenda. Because there are 2 nominations for one of the outside bodies, I propose to deal with them separately. Is the nomination of Councillor Platt to the University of Manchester General Assembly moved and seconded?
Moved.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Do any other members wish to contribute? All those in favour of appointing Councillor Platt to the University of Manchester General Assembly? All those against? Are there any abstentions? That vote is carried. We now have more than one nomination for the position at the Standish United Charity. The following nominations have been received: for Councillor John O'Neill and for Councillor George Ferris. Before I put the 2 nominations to the vote, do any members wish to speak?
Yes.
Councillor George Ferris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Whilst we've just recognised Mr John O'Neill's contribution to the council as a councillor in his time that he served as a councillor, and this council will recognise that in November. That's what is to be accepted. The nomination for the Standish charities, the criteria is that the person nominated by this council should have an interest in Standish. I'm unfamiliar with, all members know that if councillors don't have a in Chevington, and I'm not saying that to necessarily negate it from being the council's representative, but it was needed to be asked what contributions or what interest in Standish he has. Given that he's taken a step back from public life, given that the people of Standish unanimously voted to be Standish independent councillors, I would hope that there's no party politics in this nomination, and that we can support Councillor George Ferris for this nomination, because I know the Standish people will want this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other members wish to speak? I'm going to ask all those in favour of John O'Neill, please vote. All those against?
Can I have that recorded, please, Madam Mayor?
Any abstentions? All those in favour of Councillor George Ferris?
Can I have my vote recorded, Madam Mayor?
All those against? Right. Councillor John O'Neill has been elected for this position. Thank you. Item 6I, Scrutiny Annual Report. We have a report on page 83 of the Council agenda, which was considered by the Confident Council Scrutiny Committee on 18th of August and by the Cabinet on the 21st of August. The Council is requested to agree the recommendation of Cabinet to accept the annual report. Is that moved and seconded?
Moved, Madam Mayor.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Leader, do you wish to speak on the item?
Yeah, I take no responsibility for the vote on page 86, otherwise
Do any other members wish to contribute? All those in favour of accepting the recommendation of Cabinet to accept the annual report, scrutiny report, please show now. All those against? Any abstentions? That vote is carried. Thank you. Item 7, policy framework item. Treasury Management Annual Review 2013-14. At page 97, we have a report that was considered by the Audit, Governance and Improvement Review Committee at its meeting held on the 7th of August, and the Council is requested to note that report. Is that moved and seconded?
Moved. Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Leader, do you wish to speak on the item? Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Conway.
I think in these times of difficult financial situation, it's very good that this council, this Labour Control Council, can show sound financial management within a very difficult circumstances, and not be like a local Tory Control Council like Trafford, who actually don't have very sound financial management. They found a £7 million black hole. So congratulations to this council and its officers for sound financial economic management.
Thank you, Councillor. Do any other members wish to speak? All those in favour of noting the report? All those against? Are there any abstentions? That vote is carried. Thank you. Item 8. Questions and comments on the deliberations of Cabinet and committees. There are no questions or comments. Item 9. Notices of motion. The motion has already been submitted by Councillor Orwell on item 6. Thank you. That concludes the business for this evening. Thank you.